This video is not intended for children, but rather 20-something nerds that take cartoons way too seriously and overanalyze everything. If you're younger than 13 years old, you're not supposed to be on YouTube. You would think that I'd be more motivated to do more videos after my last one did so well. Well, life had other plans and I probably spent way too much time preparing D&D sessions. Well, and even this video is somewhat D&D related. Over the last couple of years I noticed a trend in cartoons that there's at least one episode in every series where the cast sits down to play a game like Dungeons & Dragons. Now, of course, it's not exactly new. D&D has been around since the 70s and it even got its own cartoon in the 80s. Does anyone want me to talk about that one at some point? Just asking. But in recent years it seems to be more common, which isn't quite surprising actually since D&D is nowadays more popular than ever. But one thing that tends to be glossed over in episodes like these is the concept of character death, or if it pops up it is usually played for laughs. Let's take Voltron Legendary Defender for example. Shiro's character immediately dies and he just continues playing the same character, only saying that it is his twin brother, which funnily enough foreshadows the reveal that Shiro has been a clone since season 3, which is perhaps the only thing that works about that twist. Yeah, the last couple of Voltron seasons weren't that great. Anyway, this episode of 101 Dalmatian Street of all things deals with that topic. Now at this point I should probably mention that Poodlefall isn't really a D&D analog, but rather an adventure board game with RPG elements. Those games are often inspired by D&D but are more streamlined. You don't build your own character, but you rather pick one from a selection of provided characters and you customize them with equipment and you level them up as the game progresses. Some of these games allow you to carry over the progress you made into new modules that are released as expansions, which seems to be the case for Poodlefall as well. And another difference is that you are kinda limited to available modules that you have to purchase, which have to be played in a specific way. The player interactions with the world is somewhat limited and you cannot go off the rails like in a D&D campaign. Doesn't mean that they are worse than D&D though, they just offer a different playing experience. They can be a lot of fun. Personally I simply prefer games like D&D more as I like to make up my own stuff, but I would still recommend giving them a try. I usually just like to compare Poodlefall to D&D as a shorthand to get the general idea across, and it is similar enough to make comparisons. Now the episode begins with Dylan and Dawkins preparing their Poodlefall session when Dolly jumps in as she wants to go to the park with them. It's not like Dolly has like 96 other siblings she could ask. Well, but she decided to join the game when Hansel arrived, who, as we established in the episode Poodlefall, is also a fan of the game. However, while Dolly joins the game to spend some time with Hansel, she isn't exactly a fan of it.
It's Paw the Mighty! Hound the Handsome, string your bow! Look out! She's charging!
Whoa!
Dolly! Take this seriously!
Yes, sir, Poodlefall, sir!
But all is not lost, for we still have the golden kibble.
Yeah, Dolly is a bit unbearable here. It's one thing that she is bored, but actively disturbing the game like that is not only rude, it is kinda counterproductive to what Dolly is trying to achieve here, getting closer to Hansel. But apparently they still managed to get to the end of the adventure module and face against the final boss, Lord Thorball. Dawkins gives an epic narration for atmosphere and they are about to fight him when Dolly starts throwing random items at him. Dylan complains that she can't do that, but apparently it's not against the rules to use items against the enemy, including an item which makes him invulnerable, which is supposed to be used by the players, which of course makes the battle kinda hopeless. Yeah, again, I do think this is a little bit contrived, considering that he must have played the game for a couple of hours at this point. Even if Dolly doesn't pay any attention and just does the bare minimum to play, she should have at least gotten a basic grasp of the game at this point. Well, and then Lord Thorball is using his permadeath attack on Dylan's character Poodlefall.
It's a direct hit. How bad is it? Poodlefall, the dice declare it. I'm afraid you're perma-dead.
Now here's perhaps the silliest thing about this episode. Despite as obnoxious Dolly has been acting throughout the game and made the boss invulnerable for good measure, you cannot actually blame her for Poodlewolf's death. As far as we know, none of the items Dolly threw at Lord Furball actually boosted his attack. She only made him invulnerable, which obviously sucks, but it doesn't affect what he is doing. So all in all, Dylan just had really bad luck there. The problem is of course that the entire plot of this episode hinges on the fact that it is Dolly's fault. Admittedly, this is probably because the episode is only 10 minutes long, and even if it was 20, it would be a bit too much to show the entire combat sequence, but I think they could have done it by showing a small montage indicating that they forked him for a couple of turns, and then have Dolly making accidentally invulnerable shortly before Dylan could deliver the finishing blow. But that's maybe a bit nitpicky. Now Dylan is rather devastated by the death of his player character, even having a funeral for Poodlewolf, and Dolly doesn't quite get it until Hansa explains it to her.
It's not a doll, Dolly. Not to Dylan. He's been playing as Poodlewolf for years, raising him from a level 1 pup to a level 20 wolf warrior. No longer player and part, they are two souls entwined, each breathing life into the other. But now that life has been extinguished.
And yeah, this resonated rather well with me. Each player deals with the death of their character differently. If you play the same one for a long period of time, you can't help but to get a little bit attached to them. You associate a lot of memories with them. They sort of become a part of yourself. It can be rather devastating for some, while others just shrug it off and actually get excited that they can now try out a new character. Heck, some even hope that their character dies so they can play something new. But this usually applies to more experienced players. Your first character death is always the hardest, especially when it was avoidable. I think they portrayed it here rather well, and it is of course doubly devastating for Dylan because, as mentioned earlier, you cannot just create a new character for Poodlewolf. You have to pick one from the ones available and start again at level 1. This makes it a double punishment. Now, while this might seem like unfair game design, it should be pointed out here that Dylan stresses that it is a perma-death attack, indicating that Lord Furball can only use it because he is the final boss of the game. In any other situation, a death probably wouldn't be as big of a deal, as we see later when Dawkins and Dolly die in another campaign. There are attacks like that in D&D as well that specify that the target can only be resurrected with a wish spell should they die. So I think it's not entirely unreasonable that the final boss of Poodlewolf has such an attack. Now, after Hansa explains the situation to her, Dolly asks Dawkins if there's a way to resurrect Dylan's character.
The Resurrection Bow, a legendary artifact that brings souls back from beyond. But obtaining it involves completing the most perilous quest in all of Poodledom.
Well, can't you just say we obtained it?
You mean break the rules?
Now, when it comes to D&D, this is a bit of a tricky question. As Dungeon Master, you want there to be consequences. If you play D&D without the risk of getting killed, you can still make it fun if you are telling an engaging story, but it takes away a lot of the thrill. Doubly so in Poodlewolf, as it is less about roleplay than combat and dungeon crawling as far as I can say. Removing the risk of death takes away the thrill of combat to some degree, and hey, if your players do something really stupid, they have no one but themselves to blame. But you also don't want to ruin the fun. So, if an attack would kill a character, especially if it's just due to really bad luck, it is not always a bad idea to bend the rules a little bit. Fudge some rules, offer means of resurrection, you know the drill. But at the same time, it is also important to stick with your guns. It can be difficult to find the right balance. This is one of the many challenges a Dungeon Master must face. And yeah, doing a lengthy side quest to resurrect someone is a pretty good solution. It's a good way to throw your players a bone, pun intended, while not making it too easy. Dawkins and Dolly play the game to get the resurrection bone, but they die instantly because Dolly doesn't know the rules. That's when Hansa comes in and offers his help, and he finally manages to get Dolly into the game.
Arise! These swear chihuahuas, they want to use you as a toothpick. Are you going to let them?
No.
What's that?
No?
Now look at yourself. You're no Camden Hound. You're a mythic mutt of metal. You are Dog's Body. Then fight, Dog's Body! Fight!
Together they manage to beat the module while taking a potshot at Clarissa by using her assistant for a sheet roll. But as it turns out, Dawkins doesn't have the resurrection bone, even though he definitely ordered it. Frankly, it kinda irritates me that he apparently has the expansion to retrieve it, but had to buy the bone separately, but okay, let's roll with that. Dolly, however, has an idea where it might be.
Constantine? Why would he have it?
This man's not a big dog fan.
So what do we do?
We bridge foot furball.
Okay, ready.
Fire!
So Dolly has to infiltrate Constantine's house. Turns out that Constantine hoards a lot of the Dalmatian stuff. Kinda strange that his human doesn't mind the large pile of boxes apparently. Because Constantine likes to mess with the Dalmatians, he only lets Dolly pick one box, but...
Hooper scoopers?
You have chosen poorly. Now leave.
Empty box.
Must resist. But behold the void, the purity of impotence.
I always appreciate an Indiana Jones reference. Anyway, thanks to the box distraction, she manages to retrieve the bone and they manage to revive Poodlewolf and cheer Dylan up.
Canis above, heed my wish. Return our warrior, his flame unextinguished.
Whoa.
A white light shines from the heavens, and within it you see... Behold! 'Tis I!
Poodlewolf!
It's just a game!
Then Constantine shows up, who is rather angry at Dolly, apparently trying to harm her, but Dylan goes up against him, calling him Furball, which Constantine recognizes as a Poodlewolf reference as he played the part the last time around. One of the few instances of continuity in this show so far, and you gotta appreciate that. They charge at each other, but then Dylan gets caught by his mom that it is Pooper Scooper time. A nice callback to the beginning of the episode where Dolly blackmailed Dylan into letting her play by threatening him that she will call their mom to remind her that it is Dylan's turn to take care of that. And with that being said, let's wrap things up. As I'm a big fan of Dungeons & Dragons and similar games, this episode obviously resonated rather well with me, and I think an episode dealing with character death was a rather fresh take on the topic. I really appreciate it. We had some really good jokes, some neat character moments and actions, but I do think that they exaggerated Dolly's dislike for the game at first a bit too much, but I also think that it is balanced out by the fact that she learns her lesson rather quickly, all things considered, tries to make up for a mistake, and by the end seemingly actually kinda gets into the game, so overall, nice development. But what about you? Did you like this episode? Anything that bothered you? Do you like to play tabletop RPGs? Let me know in the comments below. I am Dagger. Meanwhile to myself, start a D&D campaign where everyone plays a dog.
Sly as a fox, you got me under your spell. But you know I'll never tell that I know you know so well. Sometimes you can be too smart for you're a good